everyone's admitted that you've currently got on your screen, Liz, we'll make a start. We've got lots of things to get through. So welcome to tonight's full council meeting. Thank you all for attending virtually. We're going to adopt the approach we did for the previous full council meeting, which is people will be on mute, and then if you put your hand up and make it clear you want to speak, then I'll name in turn who's going to speak next. So just so everyone's aware of that. Okay, so making a start. There's the public open session. I'll just say at this point that Sarah and I'm going to suggest that Sarah and Margaret speak at the item on the Home First Tech, which we'll bring forward to do before the minutes, and then we can have the substantive discussion at that stage. Does anyone have any concerns about us doing that rather than them speaking in public open session? Okay. Okay. In which case, there aren't any other members of the public, are there, Liz, waiting in the wings? No. Okay, so we'll move on. So public bodies, right, well, the meeting's being recorded as part of this Zoom. Is there anyone else who wishes to record the meeting? No. Okay, so we'll just whiz through the first few items and then we'll bring forward the Home First Tech element. So apologies for absence, Liz?
Yeah, I've got apologies from Jason Brooke, who's got family issues. Paul Davis' wife is ill, and Joe Sweeney hasn't got any internet, so that's 3 apologies.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to members' interests and items of the agenda and any written requests for DPIs. Anyone got anything they need to declare at this stage? No? Okay, thank you. So moving on. Receive officers' interest in any items on the agenda. Anything from Liz or Rich?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Next item, item 144, whether any items on the agenda should be discussed in private. Anyone got any suggestions? Councillor Pogson? Liz, can you unmute Councillor Pogson, please?
I have unmuted him.
Yes, I'm just bringing your attention that Councillor Judith Roberts has been waving her hand up and down for quite a significant amount of time.
Apologies. Okay. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Councillor Roberts, apologies for that. You could unmute, Liz.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Can I just say that with the agenda coming on the tonight, re the Home First Technical College, should or should they not declare an interest? Anybody who has an interest in the Home First Technical College that are also on the parish council, which I think they should.
Okay, yeah, if anyone needs to make a declaration because they're a member of the trustee or the organisation on it, does anyone need to declare anything?
No.
No. Okay, Councillor Roberts is still speaking, Liz. Could you just unmute her so we could just hear what she was saying?
I pressed my button. But
Councillor Roberts?
Yeah, I'm thinking that with there being such a lot of items on the agenda, well, items that are there to do with the Home First Technical College, that members on the parish council who have dealings with the technical college should declare an interest, because there are several items on the agenda here which might be part of how the technical college will continue to work or what. So I mean, if there are people there that have some dealings with hops and various other items that work from the technical college, and they should therefore, I think, declare an interest.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Roberts. It's up to councillors to make a decision as to whether they wish to declare interest, and they can of course do so when they get to an item if they decide that they do wish to make a declaration at that stage. Okay, so we'll come back to the approval of minutes, because I'm going to bring forward the item on item 153, which is to consider the future relationship between the parish council and Home First Tech. who've been nominated to act as community anchor. So you'll have had some paperwork, both with the minutes, and then there was an additional sort of summary table that was sent round by Liz today, which you should all have had an opportunity hopefully to look at. So I'm going to ask that we suspend standing orders so that Sarah and Margaret can both speak to us. Obviously we've got a 10-minute anticipated 10-minute slot for this, so I encourage people to be brief but informative, please. So can we just agree to suspend standing orders so we can hear from Margaret and Sarah, please? All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, I can see a majority of hands. All right, Liz, would you mind?
I've unmuted them, so they need to unmute themselves as well.
Okay, so we'll start with.
Okay, you're okay.
Yes.
Right.
Which one of you is going first?
I'll start off, Councillor Hogley, and say thank you very much to you and to the other members of the Parish Council for giving us the opportunity to talk to you tonight. We appreciate that your time is exceedingly limited, so we don't want to talk at any great length. We'll assume that you've had the opportunity to read the documents. We've sent out two. One was quite a lengthy document about the community anchor, and Sarah has sent out the briefer version today. And what I'm going to do is to ask Sarah, who is the manager of Home First Tech, I'm one of the directors of Home First Tech Limited, ask Sarah if she would just highlight the main points and give you and your fellow councillors the opportunity to ask us questions. So if that's okay, Sarah, can I hand over to you?
Yep, that's absolutely fine. Hi everyone. As Margaret said, for those that don't know me, I'm Sarah Broxton, manager at Home First Tech. I started in April this year, so I've managed the tech building through lockdown. So I've managed an empty building but a very busy building. We're a community anchor organisation, so that means that we're working in collaboration with Kirklees Council and third sector leads. The idea of the community anchor role is that we act as a hub to identify the local community needs and identify what the gaps are. So in the document that's been sent out, oh, my dog's just literally tearing up a book behind me, so there's background noise. The role of the anchor is we identify what the needs of our local community are and then support local voluntary groups. We work in conjunction with GP surgeries, our social prescribe and link workers, in order to put activities together to meet those needs. The document that's sent out identifies what the gaps are, so that we know that within the Holme Valley, it's about looking after people with dementia, cancer support, mental health for young people, children and teenagers, and male mental health, and carers. The other area that we're looking into supporting is about the skills gap, in terms of, we know that the impact of COVID has had a major impact on sole traders. We've got a very high propensity for self-employed people, so that's also affected the local population. So what we're looking for in terms of how we work with the parish council is how we can work together with the parish council to address those gaps and work together. The problem that the tech is facing is that our sole area of income comes from our room rental and space rental. So we've got the building, and we've got the organisational capacity to be able to facilitate these things. But without that, and because of the impact of COVID, we haven't been able to bridge that gap. So what we're asking for in terms of this meeting tonight is to see how we can work together to be able to collaborate and work together as a community to address those issues.
Okay.
Margaret, is there anything you want to fill in on?
No, Sarah's made the main points that obviously, like so many other businesses in the Home Valley, our income stream from room rental has been severely hit, and we are very, very dependent on the support of the activity leaders to organise the events. But we recognise that there are some significant gaps in provision, and we are looking for new innovative ways to fill those gaps and to initiate new activities. But we can't do it on our own, we need to do it in partnership.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, can I ask councillors if they've got any questions that they wish to ask of Sarah and Margaret about the aspirations of the tech or its current operations, etc. Has anyone got anything they want to ask? Yeah, Councillor Paul Dixon. So Liz will just take you off mute, Paul.
He's got to unmute himself.
You've got to unmute yourself as well, Councillor Dixon.
Right, should be all right.
Right. Two questions really. One, the technical college is a limited company with directors. Do we have do the directors have an element of payment? Are they paid directors? Because I always think that limited companies are companies that are running as a business. If we're going to be the ones that are going to be feeding it all along, we want to know where our money's being eaten. And I'm not happy that we didn't take it on. We took on the Civic Hall, which is self-sufficient and has paid for itself. But this one is going to be the one that's going to be the bleeder because of the amount of money that the company paid for it. Because really it was the property of the Holme Valley people, and it should not have been bought for that a large amount of money, which they're supposed to be looking for to pay back. And I want to know whether they're looking to us to pay that back.
Okay, Councillor Dixon. Margaret, do you want to give a brief reply to those questions?
Thank you. Thank you. I'll agree with the last point that Paul was making about it's a shame that we had to buy it. But Kirklees College is an incorporated body that has to maximise the value of its own assets. But in everything else he said, I'm sorry to say that he is factually incorrect. Holmfirth Tech Limited is not a limited company. It is an exempt charitable community benefit society. And under the law of the country, it has to use the words limited to show that it has limited liability. The directors are called directors simply because of the history of community benefit societies. Really, we are trustees with charitable objects, and therefore the idea that the directors may receive any form of remuneration is completely prohibited under the rules of the CBS. So there is absolutely no way that the directors benefit personally from their association. Just to the contrary, it costs us all quite a lot of money. The other point where Paul is incorrect is that we're not here with a begging bowl. We're asking to work in partnership with you in a whole range of different ways. We'll be launching a share offer, asking people in the Holme Valley to become members and stakeholders in the Community Benefit Society at the end of January to make sure that the ownership of the tech is spread widely across the people of the Holme Valley so that they have a stake and they will protect its ongoing ownership for the future of the people of the Holme Valley in perpetuity. And the rules of the Community Benefit Society lock the assets so that it cannot be disposed of by the directors. Only the members can make decisions on the future of the tech. So we've done everything we possibly and humanly and legally can do to make sure that the tech remains in the possession of the people of Holmfirth.
Okay, thank you very much, Margaret. And it's interesting to hear about the share offer as well. Okay, Councillor Carey and then Councillor Roberts, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Margaret, and hi, Sarah. As I don't know if this is what Councillor Roberts was alluding to, but a number of us have had dealings with the tech on a number of fronts, and obviously I've worked very closely with them on both the mutual aid project, working with the tech as the anchor, but also more recently with the mutual aid, the Random Acts of Kindness project, which is underway at the moment. In some ways, I think that shows us that the role of the tech is more than just a community building. And there's all sorts of issues. I mean, I've spoken to Margaret myself about the issue of the payment for the building, but it is a key community asset. It's well used by community groups and will be in the future. And I think part of our role, because we've got an interest in the civic as well, and also we've got an interest in the market, we've got an interest in the church buildings, all sorts of other buildings, some are directly under our control and others are managed by other people in the area, is to sort of help facilitate, work together, advocate, publicise. You know, there's a lot of needing to collaborate with all the different community building projects. But the thing that that Sarah's talked about tonight is the council's actually made the technical college not only the physical building, but also it's part of the glue. So their role as an anchor is to actually try and connect voluntary groups that are delivering social care projects as part of the social prescribing things. And there's all sorts of other roles that I think the tech's going to play in the next few years. So I think it's really, really important that us as parish councillors get behind the tech, both in terms of buying the building and making the building sing, but also in terms of the other projects that are underway at the moment. So I welcome the presentation and look forward to supporting the tech in the future.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carey. Councillor Roberts, next, please.
Yes, I would like to ask, several months since, the parish council gave the Home First Technical College, I think it was £25,000 or £26,000, which was to help with the aid of purchasing the technical college, which I'm given to understand that they did do, because if they didn't, it was match funded as well by another member in the community, and according to what it was said on the letter, if I remember rightly, that they also had sold a lot of these shares to the tune, I think, of around £80,000, and we gave another 25, and then I believe it was match funded, as I say, by somebody in the community. Why are we needing to be match funding again? Because I've read it somewhere by where if the technical college doesn't pay the rent, so I don't know what's all this about a rent. So if they don't pay the rent, then they will have to vacate the premises. So initially, when we helped them out in the first place, we've had no paperwork to say that as such that's what's happened. And I feel very strongly against giving some more money out, which I'm not sure what for.
Councillor Roberts, can we just give Margaret the opportunity to respond to the process of actually purchasing the building, because it seems like it's sort of a two-phase process.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Firstly, can I pick up the point that Doug's was raising? If there had been any way whatsoever for us to have been able to acquire the building without buying it, we would have done so. We spent 2 years exploring every single legal avenue to make sure that the only way in which we could secure the tech for the people of the Holme Valley was by having to buy it. We were more or less obliged to do that, otherwise the building would have gone for alternative uses or would have been left to go derelict. We agreed with Kirklees College to pay £225,000 for the building and the car park, and to pay that in 3 tranches. We paid a deposit of £10,000 when we exchanged contracts last April. We paid £107,500 in May on the completion of the sale, and that was funded by the £25,000 the parish council gave us, for which we were very grateful, and the rest of it was funded by not just one donor, but other donors who'd contributed to help us raise the money. That leaves us owing, not rent, Judith, but owing in the way of a mortgage, a debt to Kirklees College, £107,500, which has to be paid by May 2022. If we do not complete the purchase, finalise the purchase, we will lose everything that has been paid to date and the building. So we have to raise over £100,000, which is the aim of the share offer. Otherwise, the whole thing goes at risk. And it isn't just the money at risk, it's our dreams and our ambitions and all the very, very hard work that people have put in over the last 10 years to bring this building back home. So it's a massive investment, which is why it was so important to have an organisational structure that locked the assets. And I hope that's clear on what the position is. There's no secrets.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I mean, I certainly think it's been very valuable, all the work for the people have done on the Home First Tech in terms of securing its future for the community, albeit there's the obviously long-term challenges of securing that funding. Right, we just have time for a few final questions. We've got Councillor Dalton and then I think Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Gould.
I think Councillor Bellamy had his hand up a long time ago, so I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Apologies. Okay, Councillor Bellamy, then Councillor Dalton, and then Councillor Gould. Okay, Councillor Bellamy.
Yeah. Is it working?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I was putting a question forth about the massive amount of services and groups which are going to be part of or supported by, etc., by the technical college. A terrific amount of groups covered most of the areas in Holme Firth. In actual fact, most of the groups and services. Are the groups that are currently in play aware of what is proposed, or is it something that we'll be going to later on?
Okay. Is it all right if we just take the next two questions and then Sarah, if you can answer all three at once, just for time. So, Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, I think we're kind of drifting into the realms of going over the sad history of the Holme Firth Technical College's ownership, which when I was a kid had been left to the people of Holme Firth, and it's become a money juggling football. The idea that we're in a position now, if I'm just listening to what's said, firstly, it's good to hear from Margaret that you're not here with a begging bowl and you're not wanting money. That's good to hear. But to find out that the technical college has got a £107,500 debt that it needs to pay and doesn't seem to have an income stream is somewhat concerning, to say the least. That said, to the topic in hand, community anchor. I was listening to what was being said, but I couldn't quite really see what the community anchor does. I mean, we pay our council tax to Kirklees and we pay our income tax and all of the sorts of taxes to the central government. We've got an NHS which deals with dementia. We've got established dementia charities which know what they're doing. We've got an NHS which deals with cancer, or should I say used to deal with cancer before it shut down 10 months ago. We've got a government and a NHS which is completely failing to deal with mental health. I'm not too sure what expertise Huddersfield Technical College directorship brings with it in that score, but I'm a bit, no idea on that one. Mental health, and then carers. I mean, carers do know what they're doing. I don't think they need to go down to the technical college to get guidance. So I'm not too sure what this community hub is actually trying to do.
Yeah.
So
Sarah will be able to comment on the anchor role. So can we move on to Councillor Gould? Sorry, we're fairly pressed for time, so I just want to get the key points for Sarah to respond to. So Councillor Gould, please.
Before Sarah comes in, may I just correct this idea of not having an income stream? In going out for the share offer is for capital income. The revenue income will be generated from the room rental work that we're doing, and we have an exceedingly robust business plan which will be published after Christmas to reassure Councillor Dalton that we're not scrapped for money. But Sarah will tell you about the groups and the relationships that we have with the groups and pick up the point that Trevor was raising.
Okay, can
Sarah,
I just pick up Councillor Gould's question, and then Sarah, if you just answer those final questions, and then we'll bring the item together.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to ask, come from a slightly different tack and push on the commercial income streams that that may not be there already. Could Margaret and Sarah maybe tell us about what commercial income streams there are or are being investigated? Obviously, you're mentioning the rooms, but is your business model matching or something like the original purpose of the Huddersfield Media Centre, which was an incubator, meant to be an incubator for the local area for small businesses and act as a business hub, which generated its own income and has done for many years now.
Okay, can I ask Sarah to comment on the various issues that have been raised? Liz, have you?
Yeah. So to go back to Councillor Bellamy's point about how our current activity leaders, everybody is aware. At the moment, our usage is at about 17%. We're very well used. Well, prior to COVID and during, like, in between lockdown, not lockdown, we have tried to remain open as long as we possibly can. So our main usage is evenings and weekends. What we need to do is to increase that usage through the role of the community anchor that supports the needs of the community to bring in more revenue and also support those community needs. So we're looking at increasing our usage from the current rate of about 17% to 25–30%. And we can do that through the community anchor role. Our current activity leaders are very, very supportive, and we're not looking to replace that. We're looking to consolidate and increase the usage of the building. In answer to Councillor Dalton's point, the community anchor role, as you've pointed out, we have got Kirklees Council, we have got the NHS, but we know, and it's in the briefing document that I sent out, that there are specific needs of our local community that are not being met. And that's due to the shrinking of the reduction and the cuts that the state has experienced over the last 10 years in terms of what councils can provide in a statutory sense. And the voluntary sector has asked to step up to that. So we're working with third sector leaders to provide those groups. The tech has got the building, the space and the organisational ability. What a community anchor does not do is provide we are not the facilitators. We give the space and the activity leaders do it. So it's professional people delivering professional support to the gaps in our community that are not being met through the council services or the NHS services. So I think that we need to be very clear that it's not me as the tech manager being a mental health expert. We leave it to the experts to deliver that care within our building. And then Councillor Gould, in terms of the media centre structure, we have got the co-working space. The business model for the tech is that we've got the co-working space, we've got space to rent out as office space, which does need some work, but we have got an office ready to go for people to rent. It's on the market at the minute. The idea is that the commercial space, we can charge commercial rates to subsidise the community offer that we give.
Okay.
Does that
thank you
answer
very much.
questions?
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm just going to take a final question from Councillor Barker because he's had a hand up some time, and then we'll close the item. Okay, Councillor Barker. Liz,
I've unmuted.
okay, Councillor Barker.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to give a very brief bit of context here, really, because Councillor Dalton's asked a salient question, really, and it's not a role that's been particularly well broadcast. What I'm talking about is the role of the community anchors themselves. That the community anchors, and I speak from a similar position to Sarah here, because as Sarah is the effectively the coordinator of the Holme Valley Community Anchor. In my day job, I'm the coordinator for the Holme Valley Community Anchor. And those community anchors were put in place at the start of the COVID outbreak, because basically, just very quickly, you can imagine that what the immediate response to the COVID outbreak was for spontaneous ad hoc community groups to form and offer services to the community that people needed. Things like support with shopping, free food for those who, had sadly been made redundant, or things like that. However, for all the best intentions, a lot of the practice wasn't necessarily either coordinated or equal from area to area. And just prior to COVID, the NHS, through its primary care networks, had put in place community anchors to deliver what was called social prescribing services. And the council looked at these community anchor services and realised that they were the ideal units to coordinate COVID activity in the different areas. So that's how they came about, and they are providing incredibly widespread support for community activities and spontaneous activities that have supported communities right through the COVID outbreak, and are continuing to develop that response in the wake of it as well. So I just thought it was a useful bit of context there.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Barker. Right, well, I'd just like to say thank you to Margaret and Sarah for coming and speaking to us about Home First Tech. It's been really useful, and I know other councillors have got more questions, but we need to move on, I'm afraid. So what I'd say is, a big thank you for Home First Tech, and I think, as Councillor Barker has outlined, actually the tech is providing a sort of vital community hub, if you like, for during this period. And clearly, as we come out of COVID at the other end, there's more opportunities for the tech to deliver a whole range of services. And certainly, I'd personally welcome the opportunity for the tech to come back and speak to us as to how their plans evolve following the share offer and things like that, and how we can work together in partnership on practical examples. But I think it's been really helpful to give us all the context, so thank you, and thank you for taking all the questions. And if individual councillors have got follow-up questions that they want to put to the tech, by all means, I'm sure they will be happy to answer them, so we can collate them if needs be. So we must move on. So thank you very much, and thank you, Margaret and Sarah.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to hop back on the agenda. We'll reinstate standing orders now that Margaret and Sarah have left us. So we will go back to item 145, which is to confirm the minutes of the previous council meetings. So I would like to propose that we approve the minutes of the full council meeting held on the 9th of November. I've got anyone else second that? Yeah, Tom? Okay, all those in favour? Yep. Okay, those are approved. Thank you. And just as a curiosity, the distinction between approving and noting minutes is if a committee has subsequently had a meeting, a second meeting, before coming to full council, then they will already have formally approved the minutes at their committee meeting, because the committee can approve its own minutes. So where it says note, it's because they've already gone through that particular committee. And where it's approved, it's because they haven't had another committee meeting before the full council. So if anyone was wondering the distinction between approve and notes, that's the difference. So I'm going to ask Mary to read out the planning committee ones for 147, please. So if Liz, you could unmute Mary. Councillor Blacker. Mary, if you just unmute yourself as well, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Right, I'm asking the full council to note the minutes. The planning committee on the 2nd of November 2020, number 2021-71 to 2021-87 inclusive.
Okay, I'm happy to second that. All those in favour? Yeah, members of the planning committee. Okay, thank you. Carried. Okay, 148. This is the CASC committee. So can I ask Councillor Colling to be taken off mute so she can ask for approval of these meeting minutes, please?
I move that the council approve the minutes and extraordinary meeting on the 2nd of November of items numbered 2021-50 to 2021-57.
Okay, I'll second that. All those in favour? Okay, thank you. Okay, the next one, Climate Emergency Committee. Could I ask Councillor Barker to do that in Councillor Davies' absence?
Sorry, I couldn't find him.
Okay, Councillor Barker, if you could unmute yourself, please.
I asked that the minutes from the meeting of the sorry, I'm just seeing it on the agenda. On the 16th of November, numbered 2021-32 to 2021-41 inclusive, be approved, please.
Okay, second that. All those in favour? Yeah, okay, carried. Thank you. Moving on to Service Provision Committee. If Councillor Kath Bellamy can speak to those, please.
Yes, can I ask the council to approve the minutes of the service provision, please?
Okay, that's seconded by Councillor East. Right, all those in favour? Yeah. Okay.
I think Councillor Roberts wants to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. Yes. During this, if I remember rightly, I'm gotten lost now as to which committee it was, but there was mentioning about living trees, and the clerk mentioned that I had been supportive of the living trees that would be, you know, which probably would be going out now. Maybe I had said that I was supportive of the living trees. However, I did say great care should be taken as to where they are planted, because we have a tree in our garden which started off at 4 inches and now is 90 foot. So whilst it was thought that I would be approve of a living tree, great care needs to be taken where they are put. So whilst I was wanting to see this on the actual YouTube before I made some inquiries about what had been written down by taking of the minutes, then in actual fact, I believe that's become a rogue piece of filming. So I haven't been able to find out exactly what I did say. But I think somebody else has commented on that as well, to say that that's not what I said. Am I right? I think you've spoken, Kath, haven't you, about it to me?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Councillor Kath Bellamy.
Yes, it was mentioned to me, and I know Judith mentioned about we've got to be very careful with living with the living trees, and when I looked through the minutes, I didn't think she'd actually said what was put in the minutes.
Can I just say
can the clerk comment on that?
Yeah, so at a previous service provision meeting, what we said was that really there were only 2 sites where it was possible, and that was Scholes and Honley. So the Kirklees Gardens have already agreed to the one coming in Honley, and the Scholes one will take it upon themselves. So I don't think we're in any danger of trying to force anybody who didn't want one to have one.
I think it was spoken about quite some time since about, I think it was Councillor Sheard actually that had mentioned it, about having living Christmas trees.
Okay, Councillor Roberts, is there a specific phrase that you are asking to be amended in minutes?
I think, yes, that actually I want altering, that great care should be taken when planting living trees.
Okay.
Okay, can we approve the minutes with that amendment? Councillor Sheard is wishing to make a comment. Could Councillor Sheard be unmuted, please?
You have to unmute yourself, Sarah.
Councillor Sheard?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that if you have big planters made, the tree always a tree's roots always will be bound by the size of the planter, so it's not going to grow 90 feet high. It will grow according to the proportion of, say, a large planter. I think that needs to be taken into consideration, and you could also have a planter anywhere without needing soil. You know, you could put it on a piece of wasteland or wherever.
Thank you for that, Councillor Sheard. So can I suggest that the minutes with a amended note clarifying Councillor Roberts' caution about the siting of living trees can be approved, please? Okay, so we're all in favour of those minutes with that amendment? Okay, right, so moving on, thank you for that. Right, the next one, back to you, Councillor Blacker, for Planning Committee on the 23rd of November. So if Councillor Blacker could be unmuted, please.
I ask the Council approve the minutes of the Planning Committee on the 23rd of November 2020.
Okay, thank you. I'll second those. All those in favour? Yeah, okay, thank you. Right, the final one, finance and management. Can I ask, where has he gone on the screen? Councillor Pogson to, to be unmuted so he can mention those, please.
I could ask the Council to approve the minutes of the Finance and Management Committee meeting on the 30th November 2020, number 2021-43 to 2021-57 inclusive.
Okay, just before we do that, Councillor Paul Dixon's got his hand up. Could Councillor Dixon be? You'll need to unmute yourself as well, Councillor Dixon.
Councillor Foxton, I apologise for not being at the meeting, but the person who uses this computer more than me had a meeting the same evening, and it was after 8 o'clock when she finished, and I thought I didn't want to interrupt you. So I'm very sorry that I didn't send my apologies, but that is the reason. It wasn't that I didn't want to be there. I couldn't be.
Okay.
You can't have 2 people using the same computer.
Okay, thank you for providing your apologies at this stage, Councillor Dixon. So all those in favour of approving those minutes, please? Yeah. Okay, super. Right, thank you very much. Thank you for that bit. Right, so now we'll move on to item, I think it's 154 rather than 254.
Yeah.
Which is to consider a proposed partnership between the Parish Council and the Holme Valley Climate Action Group to further the aims of the Council's Climate Emergency Action Plan. Now there's a memorandum of understanding which has been sent out to everybody, so everyone should have sight of that. Now originally Councillor Davies was expecting to speak to this item, so I don't know if the clerk has any additional information to share regarding that, or just before we take questions on it?
I haven't, I'm afraid.
Okay. All right. I was just going to say one of the from my discussions with Councillor, I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Dalton. I'll take questions on the item. The intention really behind having the formalisation of a partnership, if you like, by signing a memorandum of understanding is really to formalise our relationship with Holme Valley Climate Action Group on the basis of improving communication between all the bodies in the valley working on climate change, which is obviously not something that can just be done independently if it's really going to have some practical sort of positive change for where we live. And one of the key advantages is by having a partnership, then it enables more funding opportunities to be accessed, because clearly the parish council can access certain funding pots, and the Holme Valley Climate Action Group can access some others. And it's rather like the national lottery bid that was done, where they got down to the last 20 or 30, I can't remember. That was able to be done in a partnership way. So the proposal here is just to formalise that a little bit more, so that in future funding applications, both organisations can cite each other and say, look, we're all working towards the same overall target of zero carbon for the valley, and it's a collaborative approach, but it still retains the independence of each organisation. But I'll now take Councillor Dalton and then Councillor Roberts. So has Councillor Dalton been unmuted?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can just unmute yourself, Councillor Dalton. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is obviously a very important matter, especially for those who are part of the climate action team and the climate action partnership, and Holme Firth Transition Town and Kirklees Climate Action Department, and the Labour Party and the Green Party, etc., etc. But we really should be getting a full presentation from the chap who knows how this is all hanging together, Councillor Davies. And I suggest we give Councillor Davies the opportunity to give all the council that briefing, and defer this item on the agenda to the next meeting, when hopefully Councillor Davies will be in a position to inform us all. Sorry, that's a proposal to defer this matter to the next council meeting, to give Councillor Davies an opportunity to fully brief the council on this huge step, really, if we're going into formally. I would like to point out we still haven't had a response from the council to the gentleman who visited the council a year ago and advised the council of the publication from a group of 500 leading academics in this field, who declared that there is no climate emergency. There's still been no response from any councillors from that document, which is quite something that I think everybody should take heed of, when the top academics from all around the world have got something to say.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dalton. I know, can I just check before I take comments? I can see various hands, but can I just clarify with the clerk if there's any implications of postponing the agreement to any memorandum of understanding in terms of activities currently underway that you're aware of?
I don't think so. I mean, the climate emergency meeting on Wednesday, there are 2 grant applications for money to be paid over to that partnership. So, but I don't think there's any reason that can't happen.
Okay. I'll just take the Councillor Roberts was going to speak, and I have Councillor Barker, and then we'll see if anyone wants to second Councillor Dalton's proposal.
I've unmuted Councillor Roberts.
Okay, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I have unmuted myself. I think we do need to actually leave everything belonging to this climate emergency until the next, after Christmas, because Councillor Davies is the cabinet minister now for Kirklees on the climate emergency office, and so with that in mind, he cannot speak on the climate emergency, on the parish council and on Kirklees at the same time. It's a very, very great conflict of interest.
Okay, I'll just
So
take one more.
we need to really speak about that before we go any further, because there are quite a lot of people who I am given to understand who have actually conflicts of interest with the parish council and various other things belonging to this community that they're trying to get going. I mean, I honestly I haven't found anything actually yet that anybody's done.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts. It sounds to me as if you're seconding Councillor Dalton's proposal that it's deferred to the next full council meeting. Can I just take a comment from Councillor Barker as Vice Chair of that committee before we move to a vote on that, please? Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to add to the Chair's comments that, you know, this is a group that is working directly in partnership with a great number of members of the community that we serve. And I think that's a massive benefit to the democracy in this area. I would propose that we move to any further discussion and to a vote on the partnership tonight. And what I would say, just in response to Councillor Dalton's phrases about the so-called expert document, about 25 of these so-called 500 experts are actually mentioned on the document itself. And it took literally 5 minutes worth of research to realise that none, and I repeat, none of those 25 that are even mentioned on the document are climate scientists. 80% of those that are mentioned on the document work or have worked for the fossil fuels industry. The document is a piece of nonsense. That's why I would not responded to it.
Okay, so Councillor Barker, are you wishing to make a counter proposal then?
Sorry, I just unmuted you, Glenn. Thought you'd finished.
Yeah.
That's fine, thank you, Clark. Yes, I'd like to make a counter proposal that we move to a vote, please.
On the partnership, signing to the partnership?
Yes.
Okay. Does anyone want to second that counter proposal? Councillor Dixon's waving at me. Can Councillor Dixon be taken off mute, please?
Tom Dixon.
Tom
Which
Dixon,
one?
yeah, sorry, Councillor Tom Dixon.
Yeah, thanks. I think my dad wanted to speak, and I think he was before me, but most of them on the matter as well, just speak. If what Judith says is correct, and that Paul Davies can't address the parish council now because of his other interests, there's no point in deferring it. It's a waste of time. So I was going to propose it. Glenn beat me to it, so I will second Glenn, Councillor Barker's suggestion that we accept the memorandum, because it's all written out there. There's no point in dithering and delaying. Get on with things. Get on and do it rather than delay it for another month.
Okay, right. Well, can I just take a comment from Councillor Paul Dixon? I can see a hand high up in the air. So Councillor Paul Dixon, then we'll take a vote.
I want to second Councillor Dalton's motion. It looks like this is going to take over the parish council. I'm not in favour of any of this. It should go to Kirklees. They are the governing body. They are the ones. If Paul is now going to be running the committee at Kirklees, he can do all the work from there. And any work he wants to do in conjunction with this other party, whatever we call ourselves, Holme Valley Climate Action Group, he can work for them there. He's the councillor for Kirklees, for this valley. Let's let this parish council have nothing more to do with it and waste no more money on this climate change. It can all come from Kirklees. Before, Councillor Firth spoke about this and said that Kirklees are the funds. Let them get on with it and let them make the mistakes. We don't.
Okay, noted Councillor Dixon, but it should also be noted that we as a parish council have signed up to a climate emergency action plan. Right, we've got so we've got an original proposal, and then we've got a counter proposal. Councillor Hall, can we unmute Councillor Hall, please? So I think if you unmute yourself, Councillor Hall, hopefully you've been, yep. We can hear you, Councillor Hall, hopefully.
I'd just like to confirm that I agree with everything that Councillor Dixon said, and the very fact that the council, Paul Davis, is now working for Kirklees, just confirms my thoughts from right from the word go that we are double bubbling, that we are spending Home Firth Parish Council money that Kirklees is already spending, and that we are doubling what they're doing. All we are doing is duplicating it. And I think that this matter should be taken considerably seriously, because it's a lot of money that we're spending on it.
Okay, we'll get, I know lots of people have got opinions on this, so let's hear from Councillor Bellamy and then Councillor Firth. Councillor Trevor Bellamy, sorry.
Yep, thank you for that, Chair. We've just brought in the subject of money with regard to the emergency. A figure I've heard quoted, and this was in the press, so that's where I got this from. The government have given £3.5 billion to the country to be spread out through the various councils, £3.5 billion to be spent on the climate emergency. I believe when we were first talking about this, that figure hadn't been announced, but it's a tremendous figure, and looking at the document we're looking at here, it does relate to a very large degree on looking for money, for instance, from lottery funding and that type of thing. So perhaps we ought to be making inquiries as to what we can get from Kirklees Council, as they are the main dealers with money going to them. It will go to them and they will distribute it, one would assume, as appropriate, offer guidelines, instructions, information, and above all else, funding. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Firth. And then Councillor Carey.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Well, I've listened quite intently to this debate that we've got going. I said a long time ago, many months ago, not last year, the year before, this climate emergency, it is an emergency. I don't know how emergency it is, but at the end of the day, we've got to think and we've got to look at the people we represent as a parish council, not as a Kirklees council, as a parish council. And they're not going to thank us for double taxation. This is a fact. We've always said this long before your time, Madam Chairman. We've always tried to keep the taxation. What we've paid for, we've made sure that nobody else has paid for, and what Kirklees have paid for, which is the bulk of running the council. Because after all, we are only one small dot as a council. We don't stand for a terrific amount. We've took with 3 other parish councils who have not taken any of this on board at all. They're relying entirely on Kirklees, and we should be doing that. It's a case of, you know, if you take too much on, then you'll fall down. And I wish some of you people who knew people would listen to reason. I've been on this council for 34 years, and I've made sure that, number one, I've never drawn a penny from this council, but I've always given what I think 110% into the support of this council. But this is something that I think needs a lot of looking into before it's decided on. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all money, and it's all council taxpayers' money. You may be able to afford it, Madam Chairman, but there's a lot of people in Home Firth can't afford the precept now, never name adding anything else to it. we've got to think about those people who we represent, and I do. And I think if a lot of the councillors thought a little bit more about who they represented, then we might go somewhere. So please,
Okay,
think
Councillor
about
Firth.
this. Don't go willy-nilly into something we don't know about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Firth. Councillor Carey. Councillor Carey been unmuted?
Well, he had been, but I think he's disappeared, hasn't he?
No, he's still there. He's moved.
Is he? Where is he?
He's on my screen anyway.
Oh, sorry, Doug. 'Cause I thought I'd already done you.
You did, yeah, and then you muted me again. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I support the motion to move to a vote on this. It's clearly something that's divided the committee, the parish council on numerous occasions, but the majority of the support in the parish always goes in favour of supporting the work towards the climate emergency. I think really some councillors either haven't read this partnership agreement or just remain confused or bitter about the relationship with the council. This is nothing to do with about a relationship with Kirklees Council. This is to do with the relationship with the body that's laid out, I've forgotten the name of, the Climate Action Partnership. And if you look at the bottom of the document, it says very clearly about the finance, that both parties are responsible for their own finances. And also there's a disclaimer to say that you actually both remain totally independent. So I don't see any risk whatsoever. It's simply a memorandum of understanding between a local partnership that's doing some stuff that actually mirrors what the parish's ambitions are in terms of climate emergency. So I don't see any reason why we can't move to a vote, and I'm going to give this my full support tonight.
Okay, so we had the original proposal from Councillor Dalton, and then we had effectively a counter proposal, which was to go ahead with the approved from Councillor Barker. So correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, but we ought to take the effectively amended the second proposal first, and then we vote on the substantive one. So we had Councillor Barker proposing that we approve the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Holme Valley Climate Action Group. And did we have someone to second that? Yeah,
Tom seconded.
Yeah, Councillor Dixon.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Tom Dixon had seconded that. Okay, so can we take a vote for all those in favour of that motion? So that's to go ahead with signing the partnership today. So I'll say who I can see. So if I don't call your name and you've got your hand up, please wave at me. Right, we've got Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Colling, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Barker, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Carey, Councillor Gould, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East, and myself, Councillor Hogley. Okay, if I missed anyone?
That's 12.
12. Okay. Yep. Okay, that's carried, but we'll take votes against. Any votes against that? Okay, so we have Councillor Paul Dixon, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Hall, Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Firth. That's all I can see. Okay, and do we have any abstentions on that? Councillor Greaves. Okay, so that motion is carried. Okay, so we'll move on to the next item. So the next item is item 155, which is to approve the payment schedule for December 2020. Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, I wish to raise a point of order about 8 minutes ago. How does this is two? I want to raise a point of order, and that is, how does a councillor raise a point of order in this Zoom meeting? Because I wish to raise a point of order when Councillor Barker, he may think he can get away with lies in meetings that aren't published, but this will go out.
Be careful of your language, Councillor Dalton.
I'm very careful of my language.
Councillor Dalton.
Now, the document which I referred to is signed by 500 academics. I mean, you know.
Councillor Dalton, we've moved on to the next item. This is a separate issue. If you wish to raise the lack of response of this on as an item for the council to respond to, then please raise it with the clerk, and then the council can review a response. From my recollection of the document that was presented some time ago, I don't recall that we were formally asked to respond to it, but that may well be my recollection from the time. So if there is a need for a formal response from the parish council, then please request it. Right, we're moving on. We're on to item 155, which is to approve the payment schedule for December 2020 to date. Now, if I could just ask Liz to comment on that, because I know there was a slightly updated version that came around today.
Yeah, I sent a larger schedule today, which we've tried to take up all the payments that need to be made by the end of the week, really, because then we're on leave and then it drags on. So I know it's not entirely right. It should have come up with the agenda, but I think it's the best thing we can do. So we're looking at the larger one, which was K1, which
Okay,
everyone got today.
Right, does anyone have any comments on that? Councillor Dalton, is this comments related to this item, please?
You didn't answer the question, Madam Chairman. Could you clarify how a member of this council raises a point of order during a meeting without being completely ignored?
Well, you raise your hand as you've been doing so, and I'd also recommend...
Yeah, and then you get ignored.
People, I'm endeavouring not to ignore councillors.
Can I request that the matter is given thought to and you give clarity to all members of the council how members can raise a point of order? Because any member of the council has a right under the standing orders to raise a point of order, and they need a mechanism to be able to do that on this format. We can do it when we meet live. We need to be able to do this. Is for all councillors who wish to make a point of order.
I recognise that.
Points of order should be heard immediately in accordance with the standing orders.
Well, I repeat, people have the opportunity to put their hand up, but you're right, it is challenging when people have already spoken on an item to know what they're raising their hand about. I would suggest, where possible, people take advantage of the chat function on Zoom, where they can comment point of order, or just continue to wave to attract attention. This is the challenge of virtual meetings, and I do recognise that does have that is more difficult than in person. So thank you for bearing with us on it. Right, moving on to payment schedule for December 2020. Can I suggest we approve that? All those in favour? Okay, I see a majority of hands. Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item is 156, and this is from the Finance and Management Committee. So I will ask Councillor Pogson to just speak on this, please.
Sorry.
If you could unmute
yeah.
it, please.
Okay. Have you unmuted yourself, Councillor Pogson? Sometimes it just bounces back. I don't know why, but it just keeps bouncing back up. All right, are we going? Are we on there?
Is it not working, Councillor Pogson? Can you just try again, Liz? Could you just try again, Liz? And just.
I am trying. It's not just. Yeah. The ask to unmute is not disappearing when I click on it. I don't know why. Right, it keeps coming back. Sorry, don't know what to do about this. Perhaps
right,
ask Rich.
Yeah,
Rich.
Okay, could we ask, just while we try and sort that out, could we ask Rich to comment on that as RFO, please?
Yeah.
I can only comment on it up to a point, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure where the money, from which budget they're attempting to wire the money from, so I can't really comment on it. I know they would request to wire money because it was the the committee was wishing to pay £2,000 to the Home First Arts Festival, and they were only allowed to spend under the financial regulations. They could only spend £1,000. But I'm afraid I don't know which budget they were attempting to buy from.
Did you have any suggestion as RFO as where that money could come from were it to be approved?
I can have a look.
Because we'd have to agree which budget line it was coming from.
Can't Councillor Pogson chat it to us, because that's an easy thing to do.
I'm not sure he knows which part of the budget was going to be vied from either, to be honest.
Okay.
He's just disappeared, actually. Councillor
Right.
Pogson. So we'll just give him 30 seconds to see if he can come back on, because it would be useful as he is chair of finance and management to have his comment on this one. I can see Councillors Bellamy and Councillor Dalton, but I'm just going to wait and see if before we talk specifically on this item, I just want to see if we can get Councillor Pogson back on. Okay, what I'm going to suggest, while Councillor Pogson tries to hopefully get back on the meeting, I'm going to move on to item, we'll come back to item 156, but I suggest we move on to 157, which is about the Service Provision Committee request, which is to request approval for the virement of £1,000 from the Home Valley minibus budget to the budget for the Home Valley Patient Transport Scheme. So I don't know if Councillor Kath Bellamy wants to say anything on that, or just move straight to a vote on it. Liz, if you could unmute Kath, please.
Again, it's I'm afraid the ask to unmute bar keeps clicking back on.
Rich, are you able to unmute people?
Maybe. Wasn't to do
Right,
that.
I think Kath should be all right now if she's unmuted herself.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry about that. I missed the one before. I got called out. So we're now on 157.
We're on 157. We're going to go back to 156 in a moment, but Councillor Pogson has dropped off the connection. So we're seeing if we can come back to it when he's there. So Kath, we were asking you about the virement of £1,000 from the Home Valley minibus. Is there anything extra you want to say before we move to a vote on it?
Well, no, I'd like to go to the vote. I do know, which is it? I don't know if anybody knows, but one of our minibuses was in an accident today.
Oh. Okay.
Somebody ran into the back of it, so I don't know what whether it's going to be a big job or what. I would like it to go to the vote. There's some more hands up, so I think.
Okay, Councillor Firth had his hand up, and then Councillor Roberts.
Sorry, yes, hang on. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
right?
we can.
I would like to support this. This is something which I think we need to support. Thank you.
Okay, we regard that as seconded. Just before we take a vote on it, Councillor Roberts.
Sorry, yes. Can I say we're taking money from the minibus and giving it to the patient transport scheme? Am I correct there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I think it was last year when the committee members belonging to the patient transport scheme made an application for £1,000, of which there was actually £2,000 in the budget for them, but they made an application for £1,000 for funding, and they were treated quite abominably, I was told, to the point by where they didn't really know what they were going to do this next year. So have they actually been in touch with anybody with regards to this patient transport scheme?
Can I clarify that, Chairman?
Yes, please. Yeah.
It was the year before that they felt they were unfairly treated. Last year they were entirely happy with £1,000, and this year they asked for more because they were having to fill the gap of the minibuses that were actually laid off because of COVID. So it seemed the committee felt that was a fair swap, really.
Okay.
Right. That's okay.
Councillor Paul Dixon, and then we're going to take a vote on it, please.
I just wanted to know, has the minibus not been operating? Are we not under contract to pay them? Because if we're under contract to pay them, won't we have to pay the money? And wouldn't this environment be better coming from somewhere else? If you can tell me that the minibus is working for nothing, fine. I believe it's been shut down. Somebody says it's been shut down. But if the contractor has a contract with us and we should be paying him, I want to know if we're going to be paying him, whether this is going to be on top.
I think the RFO can answer that, Rich.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rich. Sorry.
Oh. Yeah, we got the bill for the entire year last month, and it totaled about £16,500, which meant we were saving about £7,000. That's because of the summer months when we didn't have any buses running. They haven't charged us for those months, so we've saved about 7,000.
Okay, right. Can we move to vote on that then? We had Councillor Kath Bellamy, seconded by Councillor Firth. So all those in favour of that environment, £1,000, please. Okay, thank you. Right, we might as well do the cask environment proposal before we then return to the finance one, with or without Councillor Bogson if he can't connect. So moving on to 158, the Community Asset Support Committee requests that the council approve environment of £2,000. Councillor Colling, do you want to comment on that, please?
Yes, Chair. We want to via this money from unspent money on the lettable space in the loo into the Hepworth Band. It became urgent because they are applying for matched funding, and if they didn't get our funding, they wouldn't make their their money to get the match, and that's why we wanted to raise it as a matter of urgency. But we have enough for the lettable space in Garside buildings without this 2,000 being vied from that fund. So I propose that we via money.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, can I see if anyone will second that, please? Councillor Kath Bellamy, you're waving at me. Could we unmute Kath Bellamy, please?
Yes, can I second that?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Okay, all those in favour of that environment, please. Okay, thank you. Right, we'll go back then to item 156 because it's in the environment section.
Councillor Dixon's waving.
Councillor Paul Dixon.
I was just going to say that I had an email sent the other day from Hepworth Band saying thank you very much to the Parish Council for the award, as they are now trying to be one of the major bands in the country. I think it's great that we can support local tradition. Thank you very much to that committee.
Okay. Right, so going back to the Finance and Management Committee, Councillor Tom Dixon, are you Vice Chair of that committee? From memory you are. Is that right? No, you're not. Sorry.
No.
Who is Vice Chair?
Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, he's not here. No.
Okay, because I think the slight difficulty with this one is we don't have a budget line that we're varying it from.
Yeah, I mean, what I suggested at the time, I don't really remember, Councillor, was that I mean, depending on the the reasoning for it, as I did wonder whether we could via it from the earmark reserve for COVID relief. The one that we used for the mutual aid group. Obviously, that's money. It depends. That's what Councillor Pogson was going to investigate, whether there was a COVID element to the application, basically.
Okay, Councillor Dalton.
If environment is a proposal to take monies from one budget to another, you can't have a environment proposal if you've only got one budget. We need to know which budget it's coming from. And seeing as how we're in a position where we're discussing the item in the minutes and we don't know where the monies are coming from, can we resolve not to via it? And if any proposal comes at the next meeting which is put together and understandable, then we can consider it then.
Okay, so we've got a proposal to basically defer the decision on that to the next full council meeting, with a proposal of which budget line if it's still going ahead as a environment. So do we have a seconder for that?
We've got Councillor Pogson just arriving back. I don't know whether he can add anything to this discussion.
Okay, we'll just let him connect them. Okay, you're able to unmute him?
I think so.
Councillor Pogson, welcome back. We're just about to see if there's a seconder for deferring decision on this, because there is no identified budget line for the environment to come from as the proposal stands.
Okay, yes, I'll agree to a deferment, and I'll have a word with Richard and sort it out with Richard.
All right, so
After the meeting, that's okay.
Okay, so we'll take a vote to defer this to the next full council meeting, please. All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Right, in your absence, Councillor Pogson, we did the other two environments, both of which were approved. So we're now, so everyone's all in the same place. I know we've skipped and jumped around the agenda, so thank you for bearing with me on that. We're now on item 159, which is council is to approve the budget plan for 2021 to 22. So this is something that's come via scrutiny of the Finance and Management Committee, who have reviewed all the proposed budgets for the different committees. So it's sort of gone through several stages, and thank you to all the committee members and chairs for working hard to make sure they got all their necessary ducks in a row and information fully considered, so that Finance and Management were able to review the budget in full. So I'll just ask Rich if he wants to say something. He's put together a very useful report that goes with the budget plan, which I'd like to thank him for, because I think his advice has been really very valuable and has helped inform the discussion that we're no doubt about to have. So I'll just let Rich make any comments if he wishes, and then open up the floor for questions.
Sure, yeah. So inevitably, because of COVID and various other reasons, we're probably going to have quite a large surplus at the end of this year. As you've seen that I've written down, obviously we've got 15,000 from Holme Library, which we haven't used. The minibus, I think I've got those at 8,000 rather than 7, which I just said to you. Climate emergency is likely to have set out 13,000 that they haven't spent. And the toilet and shelters budgets, probably 2,000 in each of those. I also pointed out to the Finance Committee about some of the budget lines that we had, which I thought we should be removing, really, where we had money, we were asking the electorate for money for certain things which were hardly ever spending. And so, as I've written down, in the subcontractor services of 5,000, legal advice 5,000, contingencies of 3,000, and CCTV of 5,000. We were asking for £18,000 every year for that from the electorate, but never really doing anything with it. So it felt a bit illegitimate to do it. So what the Finance Committee have decided to do is to earmark those reserves, so you can still spend it. If there's a problem, for example, with CCTV, you can still spend it from the earmarked reserves. It's just you're not asking the electorate for it each year. It's just something that's in our reserves. So when I wrote this, I'd written that we were going to have a surplus of about 70,000. I suspect we won't have a surplus of 70,000. Some of the committees are looking to via money between budgets. So I would imagine that it's probably not going to be 70,000 in the end. It might be sort of mid-50s or something. You know, still a big surplus. So there's no problem there. But, and then budget. So what the committee suggested, what the finance committee suggested, was that I do 3 budgets effectively. One which they've recommended to the council, which is budget A, and then 2 others which take account of reducing the precept and reducing the charge to the electorate, basically. In terms of budget A, I'll just briefly go through the individual budgets of the committees, just to give you feedback on what they said. So in terms of the actual council budget, we've kind of reduced the overall budget by, like I've just said, removing some of the budgets from the actual budget into earmark reserves. So it takes out about £18,000 for that. The community assets budget is one that the committee has asked for a big increase. This is because, you know, with COVID coming in, they've put out these expressions of interest forms, and the community assets within the area have basically said that you know, they need help at this time. So the committee asked for extra help themselves, so they can meet these kind of requests. They've also asked for certain amendments to the earmark reserves to increase the earmark reserves for certain things, including Home First Tech. So just be aware of those things. Finance budget, they basically said, you know, the £10,000 in grant that they've been paying out has been £10,000 for many years. And again, they thought that given the current situation and you know, a kind of idea that we need to be supporting the community at this time, that they wanted to double that to £20,000. So they've asked for £20,000 to play with. And then there's a few extra additional things where things have gone up, for example, the Zoom subscriptions and so on and so forth. The planning budget, there's only one line really, and that's the neighbourhood development plan, which is reaching its last stage. So that's just £5,000 basically to support the referendum and try and encourage people to vote. Pubs and comms just asked for a similar budget to the current year. They just changed one line really, but the amount is the same. Service provision, they've moved some money from the budget into earmark reserves, like the £5,000 for CCTV. They've asked for an increase on youth facilities, and have increased earmark reserves for defibrillators and war memorials. Climate Emergency has asked for a repetition of the budget for the current year. Obviously, they won't be able to do much because of things going on this year. So that's basically budget line A, which is the one that's recommended by the council. That would cost them, I think it was an additional £18,000 would be recalled on from general reserves to meet that, whilst keeping the precept the same. So that's you know, we would be using our reserves to meet that budget, but effectively the money is there obviously because we've saved a lot of money this year. So I concluded that so basically what the finance committee have suggested that we keep the precept the same, and that we use any surplus we've created this year. 18,000 of it will come from the savings for this year and will subsidise the increased budget for this next year. Sorry, I'm waffling a bit. And the other 50,000 would go into earmark reserves to cover things like Home for Tech, increases to the CCTV and defibrillators and so on and so forth. And then finally, the committee asked for 2 other budget lines which showed how the budget would look if there was a reduction to the charge of £2 and another budget with a reduction to the community of £5. And that's lines B and C of the budget plan that you will have seen. The budgets are the same on each of them. It's just the precept amount that varies and the amount from reserves that varies. So that's basically where we're at, really. So it's about deciding, you know, what we decide to do about the precept and the charge to householders.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for that, Rich. Thanks
Councillor
for your work on it.
Roberts was waving.
Yeah, Councillor Roberts.
Can I just ask, this money that you put set aside for the defibrillators, what actually is it for, the defibrillators?
Well, we've had a request for a defibrillator this year, actually, which we didn't have a budget for. I mean, can you not hear me? Can other people hear me?
Sorry, Rich, I couldn't hear what you said there. You've had a request from?
Yeah, well, Liz will know better than me, but we have a kind of responsibility. Councillor Hogley was saying the other day, to make sure that we've got defibrillators to cover the Holme Valley, basically. We had a request a few weeks ago for funding for a defibrillator, which is going through Service Provision Committee. Who's that from, Liz?
I thought nursery.
Oh yeah, right, the nursery. So in the same way that there's one at Kath and Trevor's guest house, and we've got one by the toilets and in various other places, that it'll be repeating that, basically.
And I just say, well, up and down in the valley, there's approximately about 35 defibrillators.
I think, can I just say that I think, it's definitely on the agenda for next service provision to have a complete look at the whole issue about defibrillators and CCTV and look at what the council wants to do going forward.
Okay.
So we're not
so I suggest we.
Can I ask with regards to what there? How do you mean to going forward?
Well, do we want to go on? I mean, we've also had a request from Holme to pay 17,000 towards their CCTV. So I think we have to take a step back.
Not on about CCTV. I'm on about the defibrillators.
Well, I'm lumping them together because they're both issues that we don't really, I certainly don't understand how many we need, whether they're a good use of money. And so we've decided in service provision that we'll have a big discussion about both of them in January.
So I think we need to defer that.
Can I just say that the parish council needn't have any worries whatsoever with regards to the defibrillators. They have all been paid for, apart from if they've asked for any grant funding, because they've been for match funding, because they have been paid for by the Holme Valley Hospital League of Friends.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts. Can I ask that, obviously there's going to be a discussion at service provision, so I think you're a member of service provision, Councillor Roberts, if I'm right. So I suppose in terms of service provision being able to have that discussion, the item in the budget is just putting in a prospective budget for defibrillators. But Rich, remind us how much that's for.
I will have to look.
I think
it's £1,000.
It's 2,000 for defibrillators and 5,000 for CCTV.
Okay, so neither of them are material in terms of the scale of the budget we're talking about. So
how much is the defibrillators, Liz?
2,000 in earmarked reserves is what we've decided on.
They're not in the budget.
No, earmarked reserves.
Okay, Councillor Roberts, we're not going to be able to discuss each item in that level of detail. We're looking at the budget as a whole. And Councillor Dalton, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's the item, Rich, that you've put down in the report relating to planning committee budget. £5,000 budget to fund publicity, administration and promotion of the upcoming referendum. Now, a lot of money has been spent on the neighbourhood plan and developing the neighbourhood plan by persons unknown. Now, back in May 2019, when Councillor Paul Dixon suggested that I, as a new council member, was my skills were utilised on the neighbourhood planning committee group, I still don't know who is developing this plan. Mystery people in the background, don't know who they are. Now, you've allocated a budget of £5,000 on top of the £10,000 that the council's already spent developing a plan. Now, I'd like to know what budget is in place to assist the promotion of the views that believe that the neighbourhood plan is nothing short of cultural and democratic vandalism, and how much of that budget is going to be allocated to those who will be suggesting to the local populace that the neighbourhood plan is not in their interests. It takes away their democratic link to the planning department.
Dalton,
and I'd like to know how much money is allocated out of that budget towards supporting those who will be looking to get the population to reject this idiocy of the neighbourhood plan.
The budget item for the neighbourhood plan is not to promote a positive vote for it. It is to encourage people to take part in that referendum. So the parish council is the leading body, the qualifying body that has prepared the neighbourhood plan in conjunction with community groups that form part of the steering group. But it's the parish council that approved the submission version of the neighbourhood plan, which is now going through the system. But actually that budget item is just for any costs associated with preparing for referendum. It is not for campaigning for a yes vote. It is purely for making sure people are aware there is a referendum. Rich, do you have any comment on that?
No, I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay. Right, can I suggest we move to a vote on the budget item? Conscious we've got quite a few items to go through, and obviously it's been discussed in quite a lot of detail through the various committees and then finance and management. Can I make a proposal that we approve the budget plan A, which as presented to us, which is the first item before we set the precept. Okay, will anyone second the?
Councillor Pogson seconding that.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see Councillor Pogson. Okay, all those in favour of adopting that budget A, please. Okay, so I can see Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Barker, Councillor Sheards, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East, myself. Have I missed anyone? Oh, sorry, Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Trevor Bellamy. How many's that, Liz?
I haven't. I'm sorry. I was trying to count them. I haven't written them all down. Can you put your hands up again, and please, I'll just count.
Okay.
Rachel, you put.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. May as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I can see 13. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? So it's carried, but for completeness, is anyone voting against that budget? Okay, Councillor Dalton, thank you. Anyone else?
And Councillor Carr. Are you voting against, Councillor Carr? Is he frozen?
Councillor Carey frozen,
I think he's frozen.
Oh, hang on. Councillor Carey, are you voting for or against? For.
He's for.
Okay. And any abstentions on the budget?
No.
Okay. There seem to be some people not voting, but okay. Councillor Roberts, how are you voting? Can we unmute Councillor Roberts so we know?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Roberts. Okay, so so that's carried. So the budget plan is as per budget A. So moving on to item 160, let's consider the setting of the precepts for 2021-22, which the proposal, obviously we have the three proposals, but the budget A is based on the precepts being at the same level as it is this year. So it's a precept freeze, for want of a better word. So I'd like to propose we go ahead with the same level of precept as we had this year. Does anyone want to second that? Councillor Colling, thank you. All those in favour of freezing the precepts at the current level? Okay, we'll put your hands up, please. Okay, so we've got.
No, just a minute. Can I propose? Can I please propose?
Sorry, have you got a counter proposal, Councillor Roberts?
Can I actually propose that we have a reduction in the oh God,
precept?
In the precept, that's it. Can I actually ask that we have a reduction in the precept?
How much, Councillor Roberts? By the £2 or the £5?
Well, I would say the £5 actually. If we're not using all that money, then we don't need to be asking for it. Then we can
have we
reduce
got a
it.
have we got a seconder? Have we got a seconder for Councillor Roberts?
Councillor Dixon, hand up. Councillor
Councillor
Dalton.
Paul Dixon, are you seconding that?
You wanted to speak.
Councillor Paul Dixon.
Okay.
I want to second that, and I think it's disgraceful that all the councillors that have voted to keep the precept the same when we've had such a bad year, when all this money hasn't been spent, when we've got the opportunity to reduce the budget, and I think our ambition should be to reduce it, not increase it. And in fact, by doing what we're doing, we're increasing it by a lot of money. I think it's disgusting, and we all should be ashamed of it. And I think that this council should have reduced it by at least what Julie said or more.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry for my thoughts, but when people have suffered all they have this year, to get a bit of money back by a reduction in the rates wouldn't have been a bad thing for a lot of people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Just before we vote on the counter proposal, Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, I think I'd like to echo the wise words of Councillor Dixon. Out in the real world, people's businesses are disappearing. A lot of people who work in the private sector have been furloughed or made unemployed, or they're on 80 pence in the pound. A £5 reduction would be around about 20% reduction. We should, when the general public are going through such difficult times, for us to be looking at spending £47,000 on some climate fantasy and then keep taking the same money off the taxpayers who are struggling. And to hear all these Labour Party councillors talk about how they're going to help the people, that help take money out of the back
Thank you,
pocket.
Councillor Dalton. You've made your point. Okay, so we've got a counter proposal by Councillor Roberts that we take the opportunity to reduce the precept by £5 on a bandy property, bandy household, which is effectively the achieving budget C. So we had that proposed by Councillor Roberts, seconded by Councillor Dixon. So all those in favour of that proposal, please, to have a £5 reduction. Okay, so we have Councillor Roberts, Councillor Paul Dixon, Councillor Dyhall, Councillor James Dalton, Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, Councillor Firth. Is that everyone? That was 7 by my reckoning. Okay, all those against that counter proposal, please. So we've got Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Pat Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Sheards, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East, Councillor Carey, and myself, Councillor Hogley. So, sorry, was there Councillor Greaves as well? Yeah.
12.
Okay, so that counter proposal is defeated. Did anyone abstain on that, by the way? Anyone abstain? No. Okay, so so we'll move to the original proposal, which is to have the frozen precept. Councillor Roberts, you want to say something?
Yeah, Can I say, I believe Councillor Lockley voted on that, and I didn't realise he was a ratepayer.
Councillor Roberts, he's a councillor of the Home Valley Parish Council, so he has a vote on all votes. Right, so we'll move to the main proposal, which Councillor Greaves. Could we unmute Councillor Greaves, please?
Hi, yeah, just for clarity, it's not freezing the precept, it will be freezing the band D precept charge. The precept itself will vary a little bit, but it's freezing the banding charges. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the proposal is to freeze the band D household charge at the same level, and as Councillor Greaves says, the actual total of the precept is slightly different because it's based on the number of households within the valley. Okay, so I'll propose that. Have we got someone to? Well, sorry, we've already proposed and seconded it. So can we move to vote on that? All those in favour of having that precept, so band D remains the same. Okay, so we've got Councillor Hogley, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Sheards, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East and Councillor Carey. So I make that 12. So that's carried.
Yeah, 12.
Votes against for completeness. So all those against that, we've got Councillor Roberts, Councillor Hall, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Paul Dixon, Councillors Kath and Trevor Bellamy, Councillor Firth, and that's it. Any abstentions? No. Okay, so we've voted to go ahead with the budget A, which keeps the band D precept at the same. Okay, thank you for that. Right, moving on to item 161. This is just something I've put together as a suggestion, which is to develop some clear priorities for the parish council looking ahead, effectively allowing us to communicate to our local community where we're going to focus our efforts and our attention to support our local community, economy and environment. And what I've suggested is that we effectively articulate the priorities which really come out of two key documents that we've now publicly declared as a parish council we are wishing to go ahead with, which is the neighbourhood development plan, which has a whole series of actions which are separate from the planning, the planning policy element. They're things that our community have told us they want to see, and obviously we've got also the climate emergency action plan. So we've got those two documents, and I had a sort of informal discussion with some of the committee chairs, just to, well, all of the committee chairs, sorry, not some of them, just to talk about the principle of having a strategic vision, to try and sort of be able to say, well, actually, as a parish council, this is where we want to focus our attention. And I used that discussion and the two documents to propose some priorities, which were sort of key themes, which was the first one was value community assets and services, second one build community resilience, thirdly support the local economy, fourthly champion local democracy, and fifthly improve our environment. And they're all their proposed priorities, and I think there's maybe quite a lot for councillors to think about, and I'm conscious that at 10 to 10 on a evening near Christmas, it's probably not the time for people to have a lengthy discussion about it. So what I was going to suggest, I just wanted to give that background to it. I'm actually going to suggest we defer this item to the next full council meeting, so that councillors have a chance to review it and come back with suggestions of amendments, and we can have a proper discussion about it then, because I don't think we can give it a fair airing at this point. So if everyone's okay with that, I suggest we defer it, but it's not forgotten, so that we can give it the time that it needs. Okay, so moving ahead to item 162, this is to consider raising the amount of expenditure the clerk can authorise under financial regulations from £500 to £1,000. Obviously the agenda outlines why this is required, and perhaps Liz, can you, is it Rich or Liz who might want to say something on this?
I think Liz, that one.
Okay,
thanks.
Liz?
Well, I don't know how long the limit has been at 500, but from the sort of requests we've had recently for things like the Climate Emergency Coordinator organising films to be produced for the action plan, it's just too low. And we have to keep coming back to committee and having extra committee meetings far too frequently, and it's very time consuming. And I just think that limit ought to be raised.
Okay, so the proposal is in that item that's listed in the agenda, as I understand it, where it says a duly delegated committee of the council for items over £500, that would instead say £1,000. And similarly for the clerk or deputy clerk in conjunction with chairman of council or chairman of the appropriate committee for any items below £1,000 rather than £500. Is that right, Liz?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Roberts and then Councillor Paul Dixon.
I think that the £500 is still sufficiently enough, because it's Richard who is actually doing the money situation, not I believe the clerk, and if £1,000 to just keep giving out willy-nilly is just not acceptable in my thoughts. £500 is sufficient. If she's wanting extra, if somebody is wanting extra money, then the easiest thing to do is to get hold of them via an email. If you don't want to have a committee meeting, via an email, which they must answer, is, are you happy to support the extra £500 given to such and such, if you don't want to have a committee and additional committee meetings. We seem to be having more extraordinary committee meetings than what we are having committee meetings.
I think, Councillor Roberts, that's the point, that when it's between £500 and £1,000, we're necessarily having to call extraordinary meetings when many of those expenditures, which isn't just for the clerk, it's for the deputy clerk as well. But
well, yes, I appreciate it. In fact, it should be all for the deputy clerk, because he's the one that deals with the finances.
Well, that's not true.
Liz has overarching responsibility for the council. Right, Councillor Paul Dixon. Can we unmute? You need to unmute yourself, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Dixon, have you managed to unmute yourself?
Unmute.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Judith. Why £1,000? It's only since the climate emergency coordinator has come into power that there's been any request for £1,000. No, leave it as it is. If we don't, we'll end up spending money. If you go to a cash machine, you can only get out what you've got in, and we're going to be getting out by doing this.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dixon. Thanks, Councillor Dixon. Conscious of time, we need to keep inputs brief, please. We've got Councillor Carey, then Councillor Dixon, and then Councillor Dalton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I will fully support this move. I think £1,000 in this day and age isn't a large amount. It's certainly an appropriate level to giving delegated powers. I'm actually quite offended that certain councillors talk about the officers spending money willy-nilly, or that money being wasted, because that's just not true. These are things which are actions which we're on with. There's expenditure needs to be done, and the most efficient way to do that is to empower the officers to do it. So I'd rather we move straight to the vote before any councillor say anything offensive about the officers.
Okay, right, we'll just have Councillor Dixon and then Councillor Dalton, and then we'll take a vote, please. Councillor Tom Dixon.
Yeah, I'd like to second Doug's suggestion. I think by allowing this, it'll help speed up things with the council, get things done quicker, less dither, less delay, and more action.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, Councillor Dalton, just your comment before we move to vote.
Yeah, there's a reason why there's. Firstly, I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Roberts and Dixon. We've got a limit for a reason. It's to do with basic oversight of public money. This is not our money. It's the money that we have just voted to continue taking in large chunks from the taxpayers. So I think £500 is a reasonable level. I mean, it would be arguable that an inflationary increase would be understandable from time to time to account for basic inflation. However, the resolution actually says the work of the new climate emergency coordinator has required the approval of for spending, not investment, spending at a rate that the clerks have not had to manage previously. So a curb to flagrant spending. If they're looking at spending more than £500, I think it's appropriate that a committee approves that, and £500 is a reasonable
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Dalton.
figure. So I think this is, but I haven't quite finished. The problem here is it goes on to say that this is to do with the climate emergency coordinator, who has been employed without the approval of this council by the clerk of the council.
Councillor Dalton, the climate change coordinator is formally approved, and this has all been approved by full council now, Councillor Dalton. All the processes have gone through full council. So we're going to move to a vote, please, on the proposal to raise the ceiling to £1,000 from 500. So we had a proposal from Councillor Carey to do that, seconded by Councillor Dixon. So all those in favour, please. Okay, so we've got Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East, Councillor Carey, myself, Councillor Hogley, and so that's, I think, was that 11, Liz?
13.
Sorry, how many?
Oh, sorry, no, I've done some twice. Oh dear. 12. What did you make it?
Do we need to, let's do it again. Put hands up so we're absolutely clear.
Sorry.
Right, so we've got Councillor Hogley, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Colling, Councillor Feeney, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Sheards, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East, and Councillor Carey. I make that 11, I think.
Yep, 11.
Yeah, okay. All those against, please. Councillor Paul Dixon, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Hall, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Trevor Bellamy, Councillor Firth. That's 8. Okay,
yeah, 8.
So the motion is carried. There's also a request there that the authorisation slip signed by the clerk and the chairman of the committee be replaced by an assenting email. So that's a way of digitally doing the sheets that historically we've had to sign. I think that's been a particular issue during lockdown, but I don't know, Liz, if you want to say any more about what would be sent to someone as an email to, would it be the same information they would have seen had they seen a hard copy?
Yeah, we can send all the invoices and all the supporting information by email with an explanation, and obviously if the councillor's not happy we can explain it, and then they would sign it and send that back, and that would be attached to the back of the invoice as the authorisation to actually pay the bill.
Okay.
So because sometimes Rich hasn't been around at all, I've had to go out in the snow recently to do 2 different councillors' houses to get things signed, and it's an unnecessary waste of time, really.
Okay, and it's challenging during COVID. Okay, so can I propose that we do that's sent by email? Before I do, Councillor Paul Dixon.
I feel that sorry for Lizzie for going out in the snow. Everybody has to go out in the snow when it snows. I think what we've been doing and having people signing these checks and one thing and another is a second way of control. If we're doing things by email, things go awry, things can get on top of everybody and things can be destroyed. And I don't like to see the people that are taking it on, there's Richard and there's Liz, and I think that other people should be involved for their benefit. It's them that are going to suffer because we trust them, and if we can be seen that it's been done right and it's not being done by this email system, which is a load of baloney, I like to see the clerk and the RFO being properly looked after. If they've got to go out in the snow to get signatures, that's the unfortunate circumstance we're in now. But if they aren't having to work only in their own homes on a night, it is some small compensation to pay to just go out and get half a dozen signatures from somebody. When I was a bank mandate person, I was quite happy for somebody to come to my house. And
Okay, Councillor Dixon, thank you for making that point.
That control once this day.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Dalton, final quick comment, please.
Yeah, I think we should again listen to Councillor Dixon. This is a mechanism that's in place to protect the RFO, and my understanding is the RFO is Richard. I kind of got a different impression earlier on from comments from Liz, but if there's a secure mechanism for making a digital signature, a secure mechanism, and I'm not too sure that a simple email, which could be I'm not a technical whiz kid, but it sounds a little bit dodgy. This is to protect the RFO from any accusations of wrongdoing, and the physical signature shouldn't be, the importance of it shouldn't be understated. If there's a secure way of doing it digitally, then I'm happy to consider that. But a simple, oh, we can do it via an email, doesn't give the RFO the security that I think he needs, and it's the RFO who needs that.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Councillor Dalton. Right, right. I think we're gonna move to a vote on it, because I think in the reality in these virtual times is that thinking about safeguarding our employees who work very hard for us for the parish council, we want to avoid them having to travel around and interact with other people at the moment. If there's a way of avoiding that in this current period, I think we should do that with the necessary safeguards of all the information being provided and obviously those emails being attached as justification. Okay, so I'd like to propose we go ahead with that to allow the authorisation to be given by email. So can I look for someone to second that, please? Yeah, Councillor Tom Dixon, thank you. So all those in favour, please. So we've got Councillor Hogley, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Colling, Councillor Hall, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East, Councillor Carey and Councillor Feeney. I make that 13, Liz.
I can't keep up with you. That was too fast. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, hands up again. Right. Councillor Hogley, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Colling, Councillor Hall, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Sheard, Councillor Lockley, Councillor Pogson, Councillor East, Councillor Carey and Councillor Feeney.
1, 2,
okay,
3,
so
4,
that's
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah. Okay, so that's carried. All those against, please. Or is that everybody else? Right. Councillor Roberts, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Paul Dixon, Councillor Firth, Councillor Kath and Trevor Bellamy. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not Kath. Councillor Trevor Bellamy. Apologies. Okay, and I'm assuming is Kath an abstention? You put your thumbs up if you're abstention. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Moving on. Conscious of time. So to so that was item 163. Councillor Trevor Bellamy's waving at me. Have I missed something? Could you unmute him, Liz, please?
I just want to clarify my position on that last vote.
Okay.
As chair of staffing, it's a position I take very seriously. I want to make sure that any moves we make does not have an adverse effect or bring an adverse fear or anything to our members of staff. Hence, I shall look at advice from them, and obviously there's a decision being made, but I shall have to work around that one. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Right. So moving on to the policy updates phase, because we've just covered 163 through that vote. So 164, so this is just a note, the risk assessment health safety policy for staff and civic hall. Can I ask us just to note that, please? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's noted. Councillor attendance log, and thank you to Rich and Liz for working on this. This is a table of attendance to try and reflect obviously the number of committees people are on and when apologies are given, etc. Because this is something that we ought, I think, under the transparency, open and transparent government rules, have available for people to see on our website. So the proposal is that this log will be published on the council website and be updated on a monthly basis. If anyone's got concerns of any errors they think there are in that current version, can I ask them to contact the clerk directly to query it rather than us go through each one here. Councillor Dalton.
Oh, sorry, completely forgot. I've got to unmute him.
Okay, Councillor Dalton.
Yeah, we had a register and a log presented to us. Firstly, I'm in favour of having published our attendance logs published on for the public to see. However, last time this was done in a printed format, the clerk not only got it wrong when it came to the adding up, she also
okay, well, we're looking at the current version.
Once told, yeah, but garbage in, garbage out, and once told and advised that she'd got it incorrect.
Councillor
And
Dalton,
she
please
didn't
talk
correct
to our clerk with respect, Councillor
She
Dalton.
didn't correct the record. How are we going to be confident that this is going to be correctly administered?
Well, that's why I asked councillors if they've got any concerns about the information that's presented, could they contact the clerk about their individual line items. So can I ask that we approve that format of that attendance log, please? Okay, all those in favour? Yeah, okay, thank you. Right, moving swiftly on, 166, consider the council's position regarding funding of the repair of church clocks. Now, we're not going to have another debate about the funding of church clocks. The clerk has advised that whilst legislation prevents such funding by the council, that we stick to that current position. However, following a discussion at finance and management, there was a suggestion that actually we should seek clarification and write to our local MP asking for the matter to be raised as to the implications of the current legislation, which mean that we're unable to support church clocks. So I would propose that we support the writing of said letter, which finance and management have suggested we do. Councillor Pogson, did you want to comment on that as F&M? Could we unmute Michael, please?
Can I propose an amendment to that as well?
Yeah.
That we also write to the Minister of Housing, Communities and Local Government.
Okay, can I ask Councillor Pogson, will you work with the clerk to put together the appropriate wording for said letter? Okay, Councillor Dalton, are you looking to second that? Can we take Councillor Dalton off mute, please?
I don't believe the council has even established the ownership of the church clocks yet, or has it?
Well, I did write to all the church and ask them if they believed that we owned the clocks. They were to let us know, and nobody said that we owned them, so they belong to the church.
It's not a matter of church or council. The council don't own the clocks. The people own the clocks.
Councillor Dalton, we're not going to have another discussion about the church clocks. We have the legal position, which is what we're taking, but we are seeking clarity and challenge on that through this proposed letter, which would then follow, have to go through, obviously, Parliament taking action to clarify the situation. So, do we have a seconder for Councillor Pogson's amended proposal? Councillor Greaves, thank you. So, all those in favour of that letter being written? Councillor Pogson working with the clerk on it? Okay, I can see a majority of hands. Okay, thank you very much. All right. Right, moving on to item 167, the past chairman's duels, where you can all read what's in the agenda, which is we've discussed this before, but the proposal here is to purchase pendant for the past chairman and thereby approve the expenditure of £312.89, and to approve the approach of at the end of each past or each chairman's time in office, the chairman can then choose if they wish to have a pendant, as has previously been the tradition, or an alternative glass memento or commemorative award, which would be similar to the Community Champion Trophy or something, or neither. Councillor Tom Dixon.
The pendant I got for when I was chairman was a very basic design, and I'm sure it didn't cost £300. I think it was more about £50 or £60. They're the ones which have been used most recently. So I think the cost is a bit extravagant for how much it is. So
my understanding is that the producer of the pendants has changed in recent years, and this is the main provider, and that's the quote that they gave us. Obviously, previous quotes we've seen were for buying more of them at once, but so individually they may have been less expensive. But Councillor Sheard.
Where's Councillor Sheard? Sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Sheard.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think it's an exorbitant amount to spend. I mean, if the chair wants to donate the money to a charity, then that would be an excellent idea. I just don't think in this day and age we should be spending that sort of money for somebody. I think it's public service, and we shouldn't be adorning ourselves with all these medals, and you know, it's just totally unnecessary.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roberts, and then Councillor Lockley, please.
Yeah, I believe it were Fattorini's that we used to supply us with before. And I'm sure if we delve back into the files, that it'll tell us how much we actually did pay for the last lot.
That's who we've got the quote from, Fattorini's.
I don't know our last time. I believe that Mrs. Barber purchased any was when one of the Kirklees councillors, who was unfortunately robbed of her award from her home. I loaned her mine because she had a need for it to be on display somewhere, and also for her insurance purposes. And Mrs. Barber did get her one, so that will actually be somewhere about in the
Councillor Roberts, we have a quote in our pack which is from Fattorini Limited in Birmingham, and that's the quote they've given. Councillor Paul Dixon. Councillor Paul Dixon, could we unmute him, please?
Okay. Oh no, they're bouncing back again. Sorry.
Rich, could you try unmuting Councillor Dixon?
I've got it now.
Oh, you've got it. Okay, thank you.
It was Fattorini's in Bradford we dealt with before, not Birmingham.
Well,
the company that we dealt with before was Fattorini's in Bradford, not in Birmingham. And whether there's a difference in the area as to where they're made and what the cost is, I don't know. But I know this much, that for people like Councillor that's just spoken and saying that in these day and age, I think it's a sign of respect, and I think it's something that you get with honour for doing this job. We don't get paid. Donald has said earlier that he's been on the council 34 years. I've been on 36. Is it 36 or 37? All I've had out of the council is 2 badges.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dixon.
I can wear with pride and have some importance. And for somebody to say that in this day and age, I think tradition is a big thing. I think it's unfortunate that the cost has got out of hand. And I think we should look to see if the company that are approving doing this now are not the same company as we dealt with. And if it is that Fattorini's in Bradford do them a lot cheaper, and if what Julie said to ask the clerk to check what was got for Rita, let's have it looked into, and let's have it looked into properly. And let's
Councillor Paul Dixon.
Let's get this.
Councillor Paul Dixon is the clerk will have looked into it properly. I don't think we should question professionalism in looking into this. She originally got quotes for buying a series of pendants at once, and clearly there was an individual quote. I have Councillor Lockley, please, and then Councillor Greaves. Councillor Lockley.
Yeah, can I just second the comments that Sarah made a moment ago? And while I respect the motion that's been put forward, can I offer an amendment that while we honour the pendant for the previous chair for the last year, because I think he could have duly expected to receive one, that going forward we offer no further award or pendant or trophy, and we end it this year. And I accept that I might be in a minority position, but I'd like it to be put to a vote. Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone second that amendment? Okay, Councillor Sheard is seconding that. Right, we're going to move short. We need to move to a vote on this. It's a fairly straightforward proposal. So can we take a vote on the amendment first, please, which is Councillor Pogson.
Yes, Councillor Dalton has had his hand up for some significant time. I think it's only fair that he does get a chance to speak.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pogson. Councillor Dalton.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I would also like to echo some of the sentiments of Councillor Sheard. If people want to bedeck themselves with jewellery, that's fine if they want to do that. The chairman of the council gets an expense for his years, and I don't necessarily want to argue about the value of the expense that the chairman gets and whether that actually does cover the cost of doing the job or not. But I want to echo Councillor Sheard's and to an extent Councillor Lockley's words. The taxpayer shouldn't be funding jewels. And if however, I don't agree with the idea of getting rid of the jewels. I think it should be down to each and every chairman. If they want to spend an allocation of their chunk of money towards that, then they can choose to do so, and it satisfies all parties. The taxpayer shouldn't have to pay specifically for this jewellery, but I think it's important for a matter of tradition that we do have a design, a supplier, and the availability for any chairman who wishes to adorn themselves with such jewels or whatever,
Okay,
to be able to do
thank
so.
you, Councillor Dunn. Okay, for Councillor Greaves, please. You've also had your hand up sometime.
Thank you. The cost of the jewels does seem to have rocketed. That might be down to Fattorini's changing their pricing, whatever. But I wonder, have we spoken to our sister town and parish councils to find out what arrangements they've made and whether or not they've managed to find an alternative provider? Nearly all of them are going to be in the same boat that we are.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Councillor Greaves. So, mindful of there may be an opportunity for the cost of said pendant to come down, I think we can still take a vote on the principle of the amendment that Councillor Lockley raised, which is that the previous chair will be awarded a pendant with the I guess proviso it was no higher than that amount of money cited, but where possible we look at an opportunity to bring that cost down. And the other element of that proposal was that the future there would then be no pendant or other commemorative thing given. So that was Councillor Lockley, seconded by Councillor Sheard. So can we take a vote on that, please? All those in favour of that approach? Obviously that wouldn't coming back, sorry, just to clarify, coming back to Councillor Dalton's point about the chairman's allowance, that wouldn't actually preclude them from the chair from deciding to use some of that chairman's allowance to purchase a pendant, as far as I can see it. If they, I don't see how that would be prevented, would it? Can I just clarify that with, sorry, just before we take the vote, Rich, are you able to comment on that? I know Councillor Pogson's waving at me, but I think it's the chairman's allowance can be spent as the chairman chooses, is my understanding.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, right. Okay, so can we take a vote on Councillor Lockley's proposal then, please? So all those in favour of awarding the pendant to the past chair, but not having ones going forward. So we have Councillor Colling. I'll go a bit more slowly this time, Liz. Councillor Colling, Councillor Blacker, Councillor Barker, Councillor Sheards, Councillor Kath Bellamy, Councillor Lockley, Councillor East, Councillor Feeney, and Councillor Carey. So I think that's 10. I think.
10, 9
Yeah.
actually, 9 I think.
9.
Yeah.
Okay, all those against that proposal? Got Councillor Paul Dixon, Councillor Tom Dixon, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Hall, Councillor Dalton, Councillor Greaves, Councillor Firth. Is that the lot? Okay, so and any abstentions? Makes a difference, but abstain. Is anyone else? Trevor, have you given a vote?
And I don't think, I haven't got Councillor Pogson down voted either yet.
Abstain.
You've
You
abstained.
abstained.
Okay, so it was. Can you just clarify, Liz, what the votes were then? Carried, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against, 9 for, and 2 abstentions.
Okay, so there's a few people who haven't voted, but it's carried. Okay. So Councillor Lockley's position stands. Okay, thank you for that. Right, sorry, I'll just get my agenda back on my screen. Right, so the penultimate thing is just to note we've had a report from Upthorne Village Hall Committee thanking the Community Asset Support Committee for the £5,000 grant and showing pictures of the new windows they were able to secure as a result. So I think we can just note that. It's good to see the positive use of that funding for a valued community asset. Okay, I'll keep my chairman's report incredibly brief because I'm conscious of the late hour. I just say there's one thing I just want to bring to everyone's attention. I'm not sure whether Liz has sent it round, which is about the One Community Fund. I'll come back to you in a minute, Councillor Dalton. I'm just going to mention a few things. Which is, I'm sure many of you are familiar with One Community Fund, but I think there's a new Chief Executive Officer and she's sent round this kind of annual report asking the Parish Council to promote awareness of the various funds that sit within that. So Liz, can you just clarify, had that gone round to all councils?
Yeah, I've sent that round to everybody.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So it's just to encourage you to raise awareness of that in the groups and circles that you now virtually move in. In terms of chairs events, obviously there haven't really been very many because everyone's staying at home, but I did attend the Remembrance Sunday service at the Holme Valley War Memorial, and I know many of you laid wreaths in your at your local churches and memorials, so thank you for that. So it was a poignant time in the valley. And I'll just, before I say Merry Christmas, we'll just take Councillor Dalton's obviously wants to raise something. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to raise with the council, this hour is now in 2 hours and 22 minutes. And we have consistently over the last number of meetings been presented with agendas which run beyond 2 hours. And this is a request to those who are responsible for formulating the agendas. Clearly, you are underestimating the amount of time that's needed to get through the items on the agenda. Can you please cater the agendas to suit 2 hours, or look at changing the standing orders or whatever it needs to be done, but we're continually breaking our own standing orders with respect to meeting times.
Okay, thank you for that comment. I would say that one of the challenges that we have had is virtual meetings are by their nature slower in terms of the muting and unmuting and technical difficulties that we often have. But I do take your point on board, Councillor Dalton, and I think that, and I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who's been able to support the various additional committee meetings that have sprung up, particularly in support of creating the budget. So just a big thank you really to everyone for their hard work, and a particular thank you to our clerk Liz and Deputy Clerk Rich, who I think are doing a great job under very difficult circumstances. And hopefully everyone will have a happy and healthy Christmas. Yeah, it's a good round of applause for everybody. So I hope everyone has a good festive season despite the difficulties of the environment we're currently in, and best wishes for the new year. And I look forward to seeing you all in the new year. So thank you very much all, and have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.